the members of a clan. On the basis of much evidence, Robertson Smith identifies the sacrificial animal with the old totem animal. In a later age there were two kinds of sacrifices, those of domestic animals, which usually were also eaten, and the unusual sacrifice of animals which were forbidden as being unclean. Further investigation, then, shows that these unclean animals were holy, and that they were sacrificed to the gods to whom they were holy, that these animals were originally identified with the gods themselves, and that at the sacrifice the worshippers in some way emphasized their blood relationship to the god and to the animal. But this difference between usual and mystic sacrifices does not hold good for still earlier times. Originally all animals were holy. Their meat was forbidden and might be eaten only on solemn occasions, with the participation of the whole kin. The slaughter of the animal amounted to the spilling of the kin's blood, and had to be done with the same precautions and assurances against reproach. The taming of domestic animals and the rise of cattle breeding seems everywhere to have put an end to the pure and rigorous totemism of earlier times. But such holiness as still clung to domestic animals in what was now a pastoral religion is sufficiently distinct for us to recognize its totemic character. Even in late classical times the rite in several localities prescribed flight for the sacrificer after the sacrifice, as if to escape revenge. In Greece the idea must once have been general that the killing of an ox was really a crime. At the Athenian festival of the Bouphonia, a formal trial to which all the participants were summoned was instituted after the sacrifice. Finally, it was agreed to put the blame for the murder upon the knife, which was then cast into the sea. In spite of the dread which protects the life of the animal as being of kin, it became necessary to kill it from time to time in solemn conclave, and to divide its flesh and blood among the members of the clan. The motive which commands this act reveals the deepest meaning of the essence of sacrifice. We have heard that in later times every eating in common, the participation in the same substance which entered into their bodies, established a holy bond between the communicants. In oldest times this meaning seemed to be attached only to participation in the substance of a holy sacrifice. The holy mystery of the sacrificial death was justified in that only in this way could the holy bond be established which united the participants with each other and with their god. This bond was nothing else than the life of the sacrificial animal which lived on its flesh and blood and was shared by all the participants by means of the sacrificial feast. Such an idea was the basis of all the blood bonds through which men in still later times became pledged to each other. The thoroughly realistic conception of consanguinity as an identity of substance makes comprehensible the necessity of renewing it from time to time through the physical process of the sacrificial repast. We will now stop quoting from Robertson Smith's train of thought in order to give a condensed summary of what is essential in it. When the idea of private property came into existence, sacrifice was conceived as a gift to the deity, as a transfer from the property of man to that of the god. But this interpretation left all the peculiarities of the sacrificial ritual unexplained. In oldest times the sacrificial animal itself had been holy and its life inviolate. It could be taken only in the presence of the god, with the whole tribe taking part and sharing the guilt, in order to furnish the holy substance through the eating of which the members of the clan assured themselves of their material identity with each other and with the deity. The sacrifice was a sacrament, and the sacrificial animal itself was one of the kin. In reality it was the old totem animal, the primitive god himself, through the slaying and eating of whom the members of the clan revived and assured their similarity with the god. From this analysis of the nature of sacrifice, Robertson Smith drew the conclusion that the periodic killing and eating of the totem before the period when the anthropomorphic deities were venerated was an important part of totem religion. The ceremonial of such a totem feast was preserved for us, he thought, in the description of a sacrifice in later times. St. Nilus tells of a sacrificial custom of the Bedouins in the desert of Sinai towards the end of the 4th century A.D. The victim, a camel, was bound and laid upon a rough altar of stones. The leader of the tribe made the participants walk 3 times around the altar to the accompaniment of song, inflicted the first wound upon the animal, and greedily drank the spurting blood. Then the whole community threw itself upon the sacrifice, cut off pieces of the palpitating flesh with their swords, and ate them raw in such haste that in a short interval between the rise of the morning star, for whom this sacrifice was meant, and its fading before the rays of the sun, the whole sacrificial animal, flesh, skin, bones, and entrails, were devoured. According to every testimony, this barbarous rite, which speaks of great antiquity, was not a rare custom, but the general original form of the totem sacrifice, which in later times underwent the most varied modifications. Many authors have refused to grant any weight to this conception of the totem feast because it could not be strengthened by direct observation at the stage of totemism. Robertson Smith himself has referred to examples in which the sacramental meaning of sacrifices seems certain, such as the human sacrifices of the Aztecs and others, which recall the conditions of the totem feast, the bear sacrifices of the bear tribe of the Owatahuacs in America, and the bear festival of the Ainus in Japan. Frazer has given a full account of these and similar cases in the 2 divisions of his great work that have last appeared. An Indian tribe in California, which reveres the buzzard, a large bird of prey, kills it once a year with solemn ceremony, whereupon the bird is mourned and its skin and feathers preserved. The Zuni Indians in New Mexico do the same thing with their holy turtle. In the Inti Chiuma ceremonies of Central Australian tribes, a trait has been observed which fits in excellently with the assumptions of Robertson Smith. Every tribe that practices magic for the increase of its totem, which it cannot eat itself, is bound to eat a part of its totem at the ceremony before it can be touched by the other tribes. According to Frazer, the best example of the sacramental consumption of the otherwise forbidden totem is to be found among the Bini in West Africa, in connection with the burial ceremony of this tribe. But we also follow Robertson Smith in the assumption that the sacramental killing and the common consumption of the otherwise forbidden totem animal was an important trait of the totem religion. End of Part 2 of Chapter 4. Read by Mary Schneider.